Discomfort kills us. Think of the worst moments in my life. Those have become the greatest gifts. Multi-seven-figure business, and we were doing tens of thousands of meals a week. It's the largest meal delivery service in Canada. We partnered with Uber Eats when they came to the city.
Did you walk away from it?
It was a really unfortunate circumstance. I had built that company with he made some decisions with the new partner and did a hostile takeover of the company. Within 6 months, it was gone. I thought, I don't want to do this again.
How did you eventually come out the other side?
I had a really powerful moment.
Nick McNaught is a wellness entrepreneur, storyteller, and community builder. He founded Unbounded, a Toronto-based experiential wellness company known for its retreats, longevity education, and large-scale festivals.
Shared struggle, a sense of purpose, real conversations. This is really making a difference for people. This is creating great impact. And when I look at the businesses I've built, it's something that I'm doing myself or I'm living myself. I truly believe in it. I think it's good for me. I think it's good for others. And then I can stand behind it.
What was the biggest thing you learned as a trainer? The one thing that you saw that was always going to result in failure?
You can do supplementation. You can find different hacks, treatments. That's 1%. It'll always come back to.
We find it very interesting that the majority of you who watch and listen to this show aren't yet subscribed to our channels across Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It would mean the world to us if you can do us that small kindness. It allows us to continue to bring on amazing guests week after week and continue to provide you with amazing value and content. It's the only thing we'll ever ask of you. If you can hit that follow or subscribe button, it would mean the world to us. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. It was something like 68,000 steps that day.
It was 50K?
50K.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, more like 51 because I turned off the Strava for a kilometer and was like, it has to hit 50. So I ran the extra kilometer. It was, bad decision. And it was by accident too. But I felt okay.
Yeah.
As soon as I got home, it's interesting. So ran the first half, felt great. Got to a point where my wife and a few of our friends were meeting us to help us refuel, like supplies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I lingered too long. Started to stiffen up.
Yeah.
And then by the time I started running again, I was like, why do I feel like death? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Because I've run more than a half already. So I'm like, I should be fine. Took me about 5 kilometers to get back into it. And then by about 35, 40, I was done. I was barely above a walking pace. And like it was a grind just to get one foot in front of the other. And I was a lot of pain, a lot of physical pain. And
you said that you did the in and out, like you kind of did the back and forth, and then you had to do like another 4K, 4 and 4.
Which
that was
I think among the hardest parts mentally, because you got to what would have presumably been the finish line and you're like, nope, I'll be back. Yeah. And then you have to go and do it again. And then by the time I got to about 47, I don't know how to explain this. It's never happened to me before. But I just lost all physical pain. Didn't feel any of it anymore. And I was not only running, heels up, my own personal marathon pace running. And I was like, I could barely move. And now I'm like full blast going. Yeah. Finished it, 6 hours. 50K, 68,000 steps, 7,500 calories. And as soon as I got home, I jumped into the compression boots. I was in them for about 3 hours. Yeah. And those things aren't game changers. Yeah. Hyperized compression boots. I'm like, if you're going to invest in a good product, invest in that one. It's not sponsored. It's just, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And
you're flushing all that lactic acid.
Yeah. But it just like the blood flow, I could feel the blood moving again. But then I noticed for about 2 or 3 days afterwards, my gut was just messed up because all I ate were like sugary.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that's all I ate for about 6 hours straight, right?
Yeah, high calorie.
Yeah. And it took me a few days to just like re-regulate my gut because like everything just felt awful. no matter what I ate. I just had to like flush it out. So I started fasting again. And, but honestly, there was a dopamine crash after too. Mm-hmm. This idea of like, wow, I just did 50. Cool. Now what?
Yeah.
Like you almost like, I haven't really even been able to train as effectively as I have been because I don't currently have something to train for.
Yeah. Purpose.
And it's a hard place to be.
Yeah. We call that the trough.
The trough.
Yeah.
Why?
It's like, think of it when you've had a great vacation with friends and then it's the day after you get back from vacation, or think of when you've run 50K and then it's the day after, or maybe you've done a retreat and everyone's like had this big, profound realization or vulnerability, and then the day after, and there's kind of this like this lull. You've been on this momentum, you've been on this purpose, you've been at a certain energy and frequency, and then the next day is different. It's almost like, I don't do it, but you could say MDMA, there's kind of that like come down, right? There's the same thing when you have a goal, when you have something that you're like striving towards, and then you're like, okay, I accomplished it. It's like, don't meet your heroes. What happens? You're like, oh, right, they're just a person. You see this arc in everything, and it's, anytime I've done like a big physical pursuit, it's the same thing. There's a trough afterwards, and that's that dopamine crash. Huberman talks a ton about this, how we like, dopamine isn't about reward necessarily, it's about motivation. And so we need the next motivation. We need the next thing to keep us going. We're wired to seek, like, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? That's why our phones are so addictive and everything. It's like geared towards us seeking that next step.
Interesting. I didn't think about it in that way. I just thought, I was like, why do I feel so shitty after something so big?
Yeah.
Like I should be proud of myself, but instead I'm like itching to like do something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, how can you anchor yourself? It's super cliche, but how can you anchor yourself in the process versus the outcome?
The end goal. Right?
But it is funny how you're probably during your training, you're eating amazingly, you're training amazingly. Yeah. And then for the actual event, you have to eat all of this shit. And like, it's the same thing when I look at almost any physical performance, like to get you to the race or the fight or whatever it might be, you have to be perfect on a razor's edge. And then during the actual thing, it's like, how much pasta can I eat? How much sugar can I take in? Yeah.
Could it, you said you've got like a physical fitness type background. Mm-hmm. Could I have done that race eating clean during it? Is there a way to do a high endurance, high friction activity where you don't have to consume literally sugar?
I think the short answer is I'm not an expert in that. I came from like a weights, more on like the physical lifting side.
Gotcha. Okay.
I wasn't like long endurance races.
Yeah.
My thought is like you probably could eat slightly cleaner stuff. You just have to eat so much more of it because clean food has low calories, right? That's the whole purpose of the terrible food, is that it's high calorie. That's why you see people eating all those, the alternative might be gels. Like I see a lot of people taking back those gels, which, theoretically are not necessarily bad food. They're just high contents of simple carbohydrates, right? So I think you could do it with less maybe volume of food, but still you need the high caloric intake because of your expenditure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was intense when I saw that the metrics afterwards of like 7,500 calories. I was like, this is what I burned maybe over 3 days.
Yeah,
like, this is intense.
Have you ever seen those? There's one called there's one called the Barkley Marathon, and there's an amazing documentary on it where it's like multi-day. They have to do these massive laps. This is one of my favorite movies. It is a phenomenal race. Your entry is like $1.49 and you have to bring like a white shirt and a pair of socks, and they leave it's an absurd race that's built after a convict's escape from prison.
Oh no way.
And it's like the race is retracing the route he fled, and like it's so difficult because when they did finally catch the convict after 56 hours, he had only gone like 2 miles. And they're like, how could he have only gone such a short distance? And it's because the terrain is so awful.
Really?
And then the guy who organized the race was like, well, I feel like I could run a marathon in that time. And so it became this massive 5 marathon lap of this route. Anyway, you see these people just like in between each lap eating noodles and sugar and peanut butter and all this stuff, and then they go back out and then they eat it again and they go back out. But yeah, there's all this like refueling in between the actual exertion, which is kind of ironic.
When you were, so were you a trainer? Like, was that the thing, or you were just,
okay. Good Life Fitness, man.
Good Life Fitness. Okay. You're the second person I've had on this podcast who worked at Good Life.
You got to start somewhere.
What was that journey like? Why'd you even do it?
Well, I was 21, so I had always been made fun of, had huge body dysmorphia growing up. This was like the perfect opportunity for me to get in shape, feel better about my body, hopefully attract girls. Like, I always pursued girls when I was younger, and this would, for me, going to the gym was like, oh well, this is the fastest, best way to do it. This is where girls are, and this is where I will get in shape to attract those girls. Mm-hmm. That was like the very first. I was a CSR, like a front desk guy. Yeah. And then someone's like, man, you could be a trainer. Why don't you like come under my wing, and I'll teach you like the ropes. We'll get you certified, and then you can work as a trainer. So I did 4 years as a personal trainer at Good Life Fitness. And really, I would say it was mostly to mask and hide like my insecurities. That was like the start of the personal training career.
Body dysmorphia is a real thing for a lot of men.
Huge, dude.
Do you still struggle with it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think I've really come to terms with like how my body is, where it works, where it doesn't, where things look a certain way, where they don't. Like I spent a lot of time growing up like hating my body, like brutally teased. Like if you can picture the classic like kid running down the backyards, kids jumping over fences chasing him, like that was me. That was me, like calling in sick to school, telling my mom I'm sick, I can't go because I was too afraid of like the ridicule. Not changing in the change room because I didn't want to be seen. Like I had just like an abundance of fear around my physical form. So stuff like wearing multiple t-shirts to hide myself, not exposing myself in front of like girls or in front of guys in the change room. Yeah, it was like a brutal time when I think back for that guy, anywhere from probably like 13 or 14 until mid-20s. It was a tough time. And I think that, catapulted me into focusing on my physical fitness because it was such a, you always look at people and like, what is it that drives them? It's typically the thing they're least happy about or the stuff that's like their difficulties. So body dysmorphia had a huge impact on what motivated me when I was younger. And then, I'd say it was probably around my early 30s that I started to have conversations with myself about like my body and like learn to love the parts that it would never be, and really appreciate the things that I did have going for me.
How do you do that? I ask because I, to this day, still struggle with that. There are days where I just ran a 50-kilometer run and my thoughts afterwards were, I'm still unhappy with certain parts of the way my body looks.
Yeah.
And I train regularly, daily, I eat clean, and there's just some parts of my body that will not do what I want it to do or look the way I want it to look. Mm-hmm. And I can only think of one time in my life where I was happy with it, where I would confidently or comfortably take a photo with my shirt off. Mm-hmm. And I was not a happy guy when I was doing that. I was not mentally healthy because of the sacrifices I was making just to look that way.
Yeah. I think I only anecdotally have what worked for me.
Yep.
I could sit here and say like, oh, I think this would help or that would help. But like everyone's so specific, especially with the things that like eat at us. For me, I stopped placing high value on what that meant, like what my body meant. Like I shifted, to me growing up as a personal trainer was like, what matters? Having abs, being one of the fittest guys in the gym. Like, I'd placed all this value on things that I had attributed as what gave me value.
Yeah.
Right. And that relationship changed in my 30s, where it was like, those would be nice, but they have no indication of my worth or my self-worth. And, you know, I happily share this with people that, you know, I've dabbled in psychedelics before, and I've done therapeutic doses where it's not done to just kind of have psychedelics and go for a wild ride. Like, it's meant to like work on something. You set an intention, and you take it very seriously, and you confront something that you're thinking about. And you have this interesting moment, and psychedelics aren't the only place where it happens, but I think you need a bit of ego dissolution, some dissociation from yourself to be able to get some objectivity around life, you know, meaning. And I had always placed so much meaning on how I looked versus like how incredible my body is, and the fact that it's taken me this far in life, and it's going to get me to the end of my life, and it's this amazing vehicle I get to drive around in, and sort of have this kind of like dissociation and look at it without it being like, you know, it's essentially a meat sack that I'm kind of driving, right? So when you stop looking at it like, oh, this thing of mine, it's more like, oh, wow, this is this incredible machine I get to wake up in. Yeah. And it's the only machine I have. And like, I am healthy. I am of sound mind. I am able to do things in my life. So what if I don't have a six pack? So what if I can't run this time on a thing? Like, I function amazingly in this world. And having that sort of objectivity around it, as opposed to wanting to be something it isn't, was incredibly powerful. I had a really powerful moment, just sitting on the shore, hugging my body. And it sounds silly, but it was so real, where I just, you know, I looked down and I was like, I thanked it for everything it's done for me, and told it that I would like make sure I take care of it and honor it for the rest of my life. And that was kind of like a real fork in the road for how I approach it. And I would say, honestly, since that day, I've never looked at it in a way where I feel disgust or hate like I did growing up.
Wow. How long ago was that?
33. Yeah. So 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's the journey been like since?
The only way I can describe it is like, you're married, I'm married. When you're younger, you spend a lot of time, at least for me, a lot of time about like, who am I going to date? Who's going to be my partner? Who's this thing that is going to occupy so much of my life? The greatest decision of my life, arguably, is who your partner is.
Yep. Can make or break you.
Can make or break you. And then when you're dating the person, okay, is this the person? Where are we going? All this. And then eventually I think you get to a point where like, I don't need to think about that anymore. This is my partner. This is the person I want to spend my life with. The energy I need to spend on that thought process is gone.
Yeah.
This is just who my person is. It's the same thing with my body. It was like, I no longer need to spend all of this energy and bandwidth being like, I wish it was this, or I wish I could do that, or it'd be, you know, it looks okay, but I wish it looked this way. It just that process of the evaluating it just stopped, and it just became what I have.
Yeah.
And really kind of coming back to what we were saying earlier, like focusing on the process of what is good for it versus what I want it to be. If I just focus on, do I eat well? Do I do the right maintenance for my body? Do I exercise? Okay, well, that is going to have me have the body that is best for me versus I wish I had this % body fat or something like that, right?
So when you said you were a trainer for 4 years?
Well, I worked at Good Life for 4 years. 4 years. Then I started my own business for another 4 years.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the biggest thing you learned as a trainer? Because there's going to be folks who are listening to this, watching this, who are about to embark on their health journey, are in the middle of their health journey. They're somewhere in that spectrum. Mm-hmm. And they're struggling in some way. So from your experience as a trainer, what was maybe the one thing that you saw that was always going to result in failure? Was it discipline? Was it the nutrition outside of the gym? What was the one thing that you kept seeing that you're like, this is a surefire way to not succeed in your health journey?
Consistency.
Yeah, that's the hardest one.
Yeah. Just showing up. It's like, you know, you can do supplementation. You can find different hacks. You can do different treatments. That's 1%. You know, it'll always come back to rest, exercise, nutrition, and consistency with those three. If you can do those three, the rest doesn't really matter. They're nice to haves. But the people that failed or struggled were the ones that weren't consistent with those three categories. Once you have those down, great. Go find the latest tech and add that to your routine. You know, go take this treatment. But like, if you're not looking at the foundation, you're not consistent with the foundation, you're not going to get to your goals. That was the most stark contrast between clients that got to where they wanted to go and ones that didn't. And then, you know, kind of as a segue into kind of where the training went, nutrition, like 80% of your health is your nutrition. So when I was running my own personal training company, I noticed that all my clients, I could control maybe 3 hours of their week, the 3 hours they came in to train with me Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever it might be. But then they would go out and they would eat. And that was like 21 opportunities to make a bad decision. Yeah. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter if they come in and do 3 hours of exercise with me, if they go out and eat 21 shitty meals. Yep. So how do I control that huge component of their life that has big effects on their results? I'll take over their nutrition. So I had a friend that was a chef that worked under Susur Lee.
Oh, no way.
We grew up together. Yeah. And I was like, hey man, if I give you kind of like a box of ingredients that are what I think are healthy, particular oils, particular fats, particular carbs, proteins, etc., could you make like a tasty meal plan out of that? Even though this is kind of like healthy food. And he was like, don't insult me, right? Like, of course I can. Yeah. I was like, okay. Because, you know, in the fitness world at that time, it was kind of like boiled chicken and
boring stuff.
Boring stuff. Everyone thinks to eat clean, you have to eat like basically flavorless food. Yeah. And you don't. And, you know, I think nowadays people are aware of that and lots of options exist. But back then there weren't. So I was doing fitness shows at the time. I was like, well, make meals for me and we'll use this as a test case to see if this is effective. Can you eat really tasty, almost gourmet-like healthy meals and still get results that you want?
When you say a fitness shows, like you were...
Classic, man. Banana hammock on the stage, flexing. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So I did come from a sports background, but I did get wrapped up in that world for a short chapter. It was a great chapter.
I gotta ask you about how that experience was, but continue with the food piece first.
Glad I did it. Terrible chapter. As with all things, the bad stuff is, you know, what makes us. But 2 years, you know, and I used only my food to eat. I ended up winning my category. Then I went on, got my pro card, won North American pros, and this was all just eating the food. And so I turned around to my clients and the other trainers of the gym and their clients, and I was like, well, this stuff works.
Yeah. Here's the proof.
Here's the proof. And so, you know, very quickly I went from just having meals made for myself and a few friends to like hundreds of meals a day going out, which then 8 years later was the largest meal delivery service in Canada. We partnered with Uber Eats when they came to the city. We were doing tens of thousands of meals a week.
Wow.
Yeah. It was an
I didn't know this
journey.
about you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's called Fuel Foods. Well, it was called Fuel Foods. So we ran that from 2000 and end of 2010 to 2018, roughly. So that was kind of like, and that was really my parlay into entrepreneurship, was building that food business, which eventually forced me to close down personal training and focus fully on that.
Yeah. And what made you, did you just decide this wasn't for me anymore in 2018? Did you walk away from it?
It's it's a book for sure. It was a really unfortunate circumstance. We got to a place where we were able to do a merger with another company. Mm-hmm. And I had built that company with one of my closest friends at the time. And unfortunately, just the relationship had gone south, and he made some decisions with the new partner and did a hostile takeover of the company. They drove it into the ground and fled to the US, haven't come back. And so it was from a, you know, multi-7-figure business right about to take off to kind of like that next echelon of of what we had always hoped it would be. And within 6 months, it was gone.
As an entrepreneur, watching something that you've spent years building, the sacrifices that you had to make to get it to where it was.
Yeah.
What went through your mind as you sort of watched it? Like, at some point, I'm confident there was part of you that's like, see, I told you, you guys decided to do this and look at what happened. And there's like almost an I told you so moment. But at the same time, there's a part of you that was, I mean, I'm assuming here that I'm thinking if I was in that situation, would have been hurting a little bit. Like the thing that I built is now no more.
I think it was probably the most difficult thing I've gone through. And if there's stuff that still has scars on my body, it's that period of time. You're absolutely right. There were a million things where I thought, okay, let them see what happens without me. And at the same time, ones where I felt like I can't let this happen to something I've put so much blood, sweat, and tears into. And ultimately, like extracting my identity from what I had built for 8 years was, there's still times I tell people when they're like, oh, what's your email? And I still say that email address like a decade later. It's, it was a very real divorce from a person that I didn't realize I had been building who I was in such connection with what I was building. And disentangling that took, that first sort of moment of getting through that. It felt like I had lost someone.
I bet.
Took a couple years.
How did you eventually come out the other side? Like what had to happen for you to go, okay, it happened. I'm now in a position to start moving on, because you're still an entrepreneur. You build incredible things. And so how did you migrate from that feeling like you lost someone to like so important to you to I'm going to start building something else? Because I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs who that project that they worked so hard on failed, and they're like, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah. That thought did cross my mind. And I spent a couple of years working for others on contract basis, doing random projects in like the cannabis space, in the real estate development space. There were things that I took on because it felt safe and it felt comfortable to not put my skin in the game while I was still, healing really from that experience. And I thought, I won't do anything again unless it's something that I am so passionate about, and unless I feel like I can trust the people involved and myself in the process. So that, the company that we now have built is something that I came across not by intentionally trying to build something at all. It was just a process of living a lifestyle that felt good at the time. Yeah. So it didn't, I probably was in a place where I thought, I don't want to do this again. And my hand was forced really by what I was doing that ended up providing a company for me to go and build.
Yeah. And that's Unbounded. It sounds similar to the nutrition journey though. It's not like you set out to build one. You just found, like, as you were a personal trainer, you noticed a gap. You're like, let me help you. And then it was a matter of like, oh, we can do more of this. And then it was just a matter of scaling it from there. Yeah.
I think that's, I don't consider myself a good salesperson, but I can certainly build belonging around something I believe in. And I think that's kind of the consistent theme when I look at the businesses I've built, is it's something that I'm doing myself or I'm living myself. Yeah. I truly believe in it. I think it's good for me. I think it's good for others. And then I can stand behind it. Yeah. And that was kind of the inception of Unbounded, was me during the pandemic going down to Cherry Beach, building fire on the beach, having coffee over the fire, and just chatting with a friend, and then jumping in freezing cold water, and feeling alive, and like what that did for our social health, our mental health, and our physical health at the time, where you couldn't practice really any of those things, was dramatic. And it's why people, I would do it with a couple buddies, and they're like, can we do this again next weekend, and can we bring some friends? And then those friends would come, and they're like, oh my God, I've been looking for something like this. I feel so good. I felt so alive. Strangers were coming out and being like, I'm going to hang out with you later on today. And it was just like, wow, this is really making a difference for people. This is creating great impact.
Real community.
Yeah. Real community, shared struggle, a sense of purpose, real conversations.
Yeah.
Super simple.
I think in a world where we're so on all the time, connected every second of the day,
yeah,
we long for real connection.
Mm-hmm. We do, and yet we don't do the things that real connection requires.
Yeah. It's
right?
hard.
Yes.
It requires effort.
Yeah. It requires you putting yourself out there, which is scary.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, I kind of always try to lead with giving someone that, when someone says like, hey, how are you? I'll share genuinely. So they're like, oh,
it's one of those answers. Okay.
One of those answers. Like, I'm not going to do a big drop on you. So you feel like, oh God, no, I've got to come up with it. But enough that it's a real conversation.
Yeah.
And, it's so consistent. I just saw a friend in the gym earlier today and he's like, hey, how are you, man? I'm like, good. You good? It's like, there's so much more there, but we kind of tend to play in that shallow pond. Life right now is designed for us to play in the shallow pond, but that's not where all the meaning and purpose and enjoyment come from. And that's like, ultimately what Building Unbounded showed me was that giving people the opportunity to feel safe, feel seen, and then feel awe was a recipe for incredible things and incredible outcomes in terms of people feeling their quality of life improving dramatically. So
what is it about jumping into freezing cold water that does that?
There's tons physiologically, there's tons of things.
Yeah.
Like, it's a cheat sheet physiologically. Your adrenaline skyrockets, right? So whatever you're at right now with your baseline norepinephrine or adrenaline, they're kind of interchangeable. Your baseline norepinephrine will jump like almost 500%, right? So you get this huge spike in adrenaline. Your body thinks you're going into a real danger, like life or death danger. And what that does is it co-releases dopamine, right? So you have this like big release of dopamine at the same time. And this chemical release can last for 6 hours.
That long, eh?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah. Yeah. Up and then down. Yeah. But what happens when you give people this huge spike, it's why you see people coming out of cold water and they feel alive and you're chemically fired up, right?
Yeah.
So there's that part. There's a real confrontation that people face, typically around the 30 to 60 second mark, where you think, holy shit, this is too much. I need to stop. I need to get out. I'm not safe. I can't do this. You get through that, sharing that with somebody, doubling down on yourself, believing yourself, whatever the mental faculties you need to use, or to use the group that's there for that. Yeah. You get over that hump. There's this incredible feeling of accomplishment and ability. It goes from feeling like I can't do this to I'm capable of anything in like seconds. And so you pair this chemical release with I can do anything with look at these people that did this with me. And you have a community immediately, right? Like, there's a sense of shared struggle. If you've ever gone through a situation that's like life or death with strangers, you all feel incredibly connected. And it's because you've gone through that arc.
Yeah. Can you get the same effect in a shower?
You can. You don't get quite like, when you think of like the benefits of the cold shower, the benefits are there. They're just not as robust as the benefits of a like full immersion in water.
Right.
It's just not able to penetrate into your body as deeply. Yeah. So things like your immune boost that you get, or your the inflammation reduction, I don't think are going to be as pronounced as you would in an ice bath. But you will get the benefits of the dopamine release and the adrenaline. You will certainly get that feeling of I can't do this to I can. And your metabolism, there's benefits there too, but those are kind of interchangeable, less effective on a shower than they are in an ice bath.
Yeah.
there's a ton of different physiological benefits that happen. I still think the greatest value of cold plunging and why it also took off dramatically during the pandemic is it just makes you face struggle differently. Like that's really like the benefit to it.
Just doing something hard.
We want to live a life of, it's kind of like what you said, you know, everyone wants something, but actually what's good for us is not the thing we want. We want to be comfortable. Comfort kills us. We're not good with comfort. We actually need discomfort. Cold plunging gives you that incredible, easy, juicy, pop it once a day type of discomfort that then lets you live that the rest of your day. Yeah. You've been putting off that email you need to do or that tough conversation you've had. Try doing that after a cold plunge. You'll go right onto it. So really what you're doing is you're priming yourself to be better at managing stress, be better at struggling well. Living a life without struggle is just like it's a fallacy. It doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. You're going to struggle. I'm going to struggle. Everyone in this planet's going to struggle. What do you do about that? Okay, well, let's struggle well. How do you struggle well? You practice struggling and you train just like you would train for anything else. So cold plunging is an amazing tool to train for struggle and to train for stress.
I want to go back to the partner piece here because you talked about, you know, bringing on a partner, merging with another company, let's say. There's folks who are in the middle of building businesses, starting businesses, whatever. And finding the right people is the hardest, at least in my own personal experience, has been the hardest part of any kind of project I've ever worked on. Because you almost have to not just align on the business idea, but on a personal level. You almost have to be on the same wavelength. What in your mind and in your experience has been the hardest part of finding partners? And how do you know when you have the right partner for a project you're working on?
You know, that's tough because I think, you know, a tough one for me to answer because the only business partners I've had have either been most recently my wife, which is its own, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about that.
It's amazing. And it comes with its own set of stress and
how do you turn
struggle.
that off?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then previously my one of my best friends. And outside of that, every other project has been my own. So I don't know if I'm the most qualified to answer that because I haven't had a ton of different business partners, but I think that, you know, there's a certain set of values you need to share, a clear delineation of roles and responsibilities. Like good fences make good neighbors. Having very clear responsibilities and roles and boundaries is paramount to having a good working relationship with someone. And it's really hard when you start up because you're doing everything. You're like, you're wearing 30 hats, they're wearing 30 hats.
There's going to be some overlap.
There's going to be overlap. There's going to be miscommunication.
But that's where the communication comes in so handy.
Yeah.
I did an interview with someone who talked about going to therapy once a week with his business partners, purely for the purpose of what's on your mind that maybe you haven't said. Maybe something happened in a meeting, you've been holding it. Yeah. How do you get that out there, deal with it, make sure you're on the same page so that next week you're ready to go? Yeah. And I thought it was brilliant. It's
a great idea. A friend of mine, following what happened in 2018, a friend of mine who runs another company shared with me a great process, which I've since adopted anytime I do work with friends, which is I write up, before any agreement or contract, I also write up almost like a spirit document of like, what are some things that we agree to? Regardless of what happens in this project, it's not going to affect our friendship. We will always commit to acting this way. You know, it's more around like, how do we want our personal relationship to be? What things will we never sacrifice for the work we're about to do? And I make the person sign that before we actually do the actual agreement. And I think that just kind of comes back to like, what is really meaningful in life? Okay, great. We're building some sort of business that's going to be, you know, creating a product or an experience or bring profit or loss, whatever that might be. That's not important. It's the relationship and it's the journey about that. So let's protect that above everything else.
Yeah. It's got to be a powerful experience to go through that, because you assume, oh, I'm going to start a business with a friend or a family member or my partner. And you assume how they're going to approach it. Oh, they will, of course, they're going to care about our relationship more than closing this deal with this client that's going to put strain on us or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you do something like that, which seems so simple when you spell it out that way, it actually forces you to stop and like, I will show up this way. I will not do this. This is more important to me than this. And it like forces you to go, oh, okay. Yeah, this is important. Now we're kind of saying it out loud. But more than anything else, it kind of puts you both on the same page. And if there's a problem at that point, then you know that you shouldn't be going forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about the working with your wife? I imagine you guys are in sync on a whole other level. And at times it's like, how do you turn that off so that you can just be husband and wife?
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
And I will admit that's the hardest part for me. It's something that is a struggle, to this day. My wife and I still talk about being able to make time for our now marriage. But previously, our relationship always came second to the business, because there's a real sense of survival that you feel when you're building a business, and survival comes before everything else. And so our relationship consistently came second to the immediacy of the needs of the business. And you almost have to, again, create those boundaries and those protection mechanisms where you say like, okay, we're not going to talk about work after this time, or
even though it's on both your minds,
our minds, and especially if you share, it's like you are, very well, building a business is like bringing life into this world, and it consumes you. And then you pair that with another person and you're both passionate about it, and it's what you're doing from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. It's just this slippery slope you can slide down into that conversation anytime. It's shared purpose. It gives you shared value, shared excitement. So there's a really easy well you can fall into that's always just talking about work. We ended up creating 2 separate WhatsApp chats. So I have like work with Lisa, and then I have Lisa. And so, there'll be times where she might text me on a certain chat. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this is, I don't know who this is. This is the wrong, this belongs in the other conversation. And that has kind of helped with like delineating at least some of the stuff. Like I'll get, I love you on one chat, and on the other it's like, did you file this invoice? And it's like, at the same time, those messages will come in. And I'm like, it's funny, and it is nice that they're like, hey, just so you know, like this is still here, even though I'm asking about this work item, because we're geared for survival, and like those needs feel so real all the time that they end up taking priority. And it's really like until you kind of have a big moment or something like life altering where you stop and you're like, oh right, what really matters, and we don't do that enough to be able to like catch those things.
When you went from scaling a food service business to then working for like taking on projects for others where you didn't have the skin in the game, that distinction between fighting for survival to, okay, this is a bit more comfortable. Why did you choose to go back into creating a business and then knowing full well what comes with starting a business?
Yeah. The pandemic was part of it, for sure. At the time during the pandemic, I was working on a project. A friend was building a glamping resort in Texas.
Cool.
Glamping resort meets musical festival grounds, meets sustainable farm, kind of like city of the future.
Oh, cool.
It's an incredible spot.
Still open?
75 acres outside of Austin. I was living and working there and sort of managing that project. And then the pandemic hit, and it's very hard to build a place for gathering during a worldwide pandemic where you're not allowed to gather. So
unless you're a government official, but that's a different story.
Exactly. So, things came to a halt, and during that time, I came back to Canada and was taking time to just kind of figure out what I wanted to do, and that's when that happened. So, again, I don't have anything other than anecdotally, like it just kind of fell in my lap. There wasn't this intentional, I want to do something for myself. To be honest, like I genuinely do like working for others. I'm a great leader. I'm also a great soldier. I can do really well taking orders, and I do really well fighting for others' causes. But, there is a certain, intangible reward that I find from having something come from an idea or a notion or a conversation and bringing it from nothing into existence.
I have a lot of respect for what you just said there, that you can be a great leader, but you can also be a great soldier, because not a lot of entrepreneurs talk that way. A lot of them still have an ego that's like, no, if it's not mine, I'm not a part of it. And I think there's a lot there that says you're a guy who's very well in tune with who he is and what his skill sets are.
I think that, there's a need for you to be able to do everything in your business and then be able to do everything in someone else's business without ego. I think that, there's a book that a friend shared with me called Legacy, and it's written by the guy who built sort of the culture around the New Zealand All Blacks during their infamous rise during the rugby championships, I think in like the 2000s. And their motto in their change room was sweep the sheds, which is, didn't matter if you were the star player, didn't matter if you were the guy on the bench, you swept the locker room. You took care of your mess. You dealt with every task that there was to deal with. It wasn't the janitor's job. It was everyone's job, regardless of rank. And I think that's something that I always found really powerful and have aligned with since, is that there's no hierarchy in terms, like what needs to be done needs to be done. And if you're working for somebody else, what they want to be done is what should just be done. So I think that, to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower, because to have led businesses and to have had people buy into my cause, my brand doesn't exist. My cause doesn't exist. The thing I care about or want to share with people doesn't exist without people, that first follower, that second follower, third, all of those people saying, I'm willing to invest in this person, or I'm willing to work for this person, or I'm willing to come out to this thing that this person cares about. How could you not respect others with that same followership?
Yeah. The ego is an interesting dynamic for men in particular. It sways us, guides us, can be our own destructive path. I want to go back to the food service business for a second. As you were scaling it, were there moments where your ego was like, look at you, look at what you've done, you're top shit? Did it ever get in the way?
All the time. All the time.
How did you either keep it in check or didn't?
I think I did it was also when I was in my early mid-20s. So I think just being a guy in your early mid-20s is its own battle with the ego, regardless of having a business or anything else. I think that, I have my own theory around when we're in our 20s, 30s, 40s, so on. But I think that I found it difficult at times to not kind of like get ahead of myself with where I thought I should be or what I thought I deserved, or where others saw our accomplishments, or if there was another another service in the space, just how I dealt. Like I had a a pretty good handle on it, but there were lots of times where I caught myself thinking like, I deserve more, or we deserve more, or we deserve to be recognized more. And the reality is we didn't. It was just like my belief.
In the moments where the ego was completely front and center in the driver's seat,
mm-hmm.
Can you think of a scenario where it led you to do something that you look back on today and go, I would not have showed up that way?
I can't think of a particular instance. I think part of it too is that I've like blocked a lot of that period of my time. It's funny how like trauma works. There's real trauma around that particular chapter with the food business.
Sounds like it.
But there were consistently times where I would argue or think I was right, and I would allow my ego to distract me from actually solving a problem or actually getting to the bottom of what was important, because I wanted to be right, or I wanted to be seen, or I wanted my value to be seen. So I can't think of like a specific moment, but I'm well aware that during that time, I allowed my ego to pull me away from getting to solutions or to resolutions sooner than we could have, because I needed to appease its acting out.
Do you feel like you've ever reconciled some of that trauma, or do you feel like there's still some work that needs to be done there?
There's definitely still work that needs to be done there.
Sorry, I was going to ask you, how do you even make time for it then? Because you seem like a very self-aware guy here. You know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the middle of building another business, and for all intents and purposes, where your head is at, the lessons you've learned along the way are being applied to this new business, but deep down there's still that thing that wasn't fully resolved. I wonder if there's concern that sitting with it and actually working through it can put a pause on everything else you're doing, because you have to, like, to deal with that kind of trauma, you have to give it the time and space.
Yeah. There definitely was a period of time, we didn't start Unbounded for a few years after that, where I had moments to recalibrate. I don't think that by any means resolved the trauma. I just think it gave me space to process a lot of it. But where I've noticed it coming up is now when I go through certain instances in our business that are similar to what we were going through then, and how I feel my nervous system respond, or why I feel distrust, or why I get upset about something in particular. And I can actually notice the places that it shows up. And I think that's, to your point, like, I don't think I've had all the opportunities to be able to work through all of it. But I think that for me, I need to experience these things because they kind of hide there. And then they show themselves when the actual situation happens. I'm not someone who like can sit and be like, okay, let me think about where the scar is. It shows itself when the situation's happening.
Yeah. The triggers.
And I'll notice it, even with my wife, there'll be things where I'll be like, why do we do this? And she'll be like, why are you even asking? And I'm like, oh my God, that's me asking because of what happened previously. And so there's moments of awareness around it. And I think that awareness piece is a lot of the work, is understanding, why am I doing this, or why is this showing up? And the more reps you can get to being like, okay, well, I must be saying this thing or responding this way because this has happened. And I clearly have, and you start pulling the thread of the sweater and finding out, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
I think that has been a big piece, is when there is a moment like that, not just moving past it, like actually asking the questions and kind of trying to find out the origin of it. And then, my friends and I do something once a year. We call it our comma weekend, like our comma in a year, where, we step away from who we are in work. We'll pick a particular spot in nature, be it my cottage, somewhere in Vancouver. And we'll journal. We'll take a ton of time to reflect on the year, where the struggle was, where we showed up the way we didn't want to. And we'll talk for a few days and just kind of work through all of that. And then we'll go back to our lives. And so I've found that has been the place where maybe more of those bigger realizations, those kind of epiphany come through. That's every single fall, we do this experience together.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's a great exercise.
I have a group of men in my life that are, my best men. And, now that I'm thinking about it, it's been some time since we've done anything like that. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
I'm going to reach out today and be like, hey guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just set a series of questions or things that you'd like to tackle, and then you talk about it with others. And it's, we're not the best mirror for ourselves, but a close friend is. And when you're in a group, sitting around talking about stuff, and you say like, what, this has really been something I've been struggling with. Your friend is going to say something that's going to give you something to think about, or they're going to say like, actually, I've noticed this about you, or have you thought about this? And it gives you more breadcrumbs to start figuring out what that thing might be versus just kind of sitting there pondering in your own loop, right? Yeah. We only have our own awareness, but when you have the awareness of those, especially those that know you and like you outside of what you're building, just like you, you're able to work through those things a lot more effectively.
Amazing. I want to ask you one more question here. If you can go back in time and talk to a young Nick, the one that was dealing with the fallout of that food service business, ego flaring, pain, hurt, betrayal, anger. What's one piece of advice you would give him that he maybe needed to hear, but nobody was around to tell him?
I think I would have told him to focus on what really matters, and like what he really cared about versus what his ego and his betrayal and his fear was having him care about. I think I would have told him to talk to his friend. I think I would have told him to have a conversation and focus on what he wanted, which was ultimately to not have the friendship dissolve, which was ultimately not to let that person go, but to work through that. And instead, he chose anger and he chose fear and shut that person out and didn't resolve that situation.
Would that version of you have listened?
I don't know. I don't know if he would have. I'm a big believer in things happening the way they're meant to happen. Even if that means you acted a way you shouldn't have or did something you shouldn't have. I think that kind of like where you are is where you're meant to be. And it's hard to want something different knowing that who I am is the product of that path, and how much I genuinely am proud of the person that's here. And that version, I don't know, would be here if it had been a different path. I'd love to look back and say, I wish you would have handled it this way, but I might not have the reflections, the outlook, or the things in my life that I do now. So it's a wish, but not necessarily do I think that is what I needed to do.
The single worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life is simultaneously the single best thing that's ever happened to me in my life, because it's forced me on this journey that I'm currently on, and it's shaped the man sitting in front of you today. And there are moments similar to you where I'm like, man, I wish I showed up different, said something different, acted different. But you're absolutely right. It had to happen the way it did for this version of me to evolve. Otherwise, this version would never have come to life. And it took years before I finally came to that conclusion.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I appreciate that you just said that. I've had a similar experience where when I think of the worst moments in my life, the days where I was like, this can't be real, the most tragic moments, those have become the greatest gifts. And it's, things like I've had friends pass tragically when I was young, and to at the time think this is going to make me such an amazing person. This person's passing is a gift for the version of the man that I'm going to show up to be the rest of my life. It's impossible in the moment. But sitting here at this table, all of the things I love about myself are rooted in going through that experience. And it's part, I think, of how we honor the difficulties we've been through. I had, small side, I broke my hip in March. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
I broke my hip in March, three cracks through the femur, tore my glute. And I spent, a couple hours doing the pity party, sitting in the hospital and being like, oh, fuck. We were supposed to go away for my 40th. This was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. We had retreats in business that were happening those weeks. There was just this huge mountain of like, oh. And then, my wife showed up in the hospital, and my family showed up, and friends showed up. And we were sitting around, and I was looking around, and I was like, this really is life. Like, this is what it's all about. Sitting here with the people I love in good health. My leg is cracked. It's fine. It'll heal, but we're all in good health. We're sitting here peacefully. And these are all the people I love. Like, this is what I'm always, every day, this is what I'm trying to get to. And it took me breaking my leg to recognize that. And it had a real recalibration of like, when I put value on things, or when I think that something is worth doing, is that actually having the outcome that I want it to? Am I actually establishing the intention, the values ahead of doing that? And it really wasn't until I was sitting in the hospital looking around and being like, this is going to be one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And it has. Like, this year, since that happened, has been the best year. And that happening, I look back on that and I'm like, that was the best possible thing to happen to me as I'm turning 40, is to break my hip. And like, it's completely changed who I am going into my 40s. It's completely changed my outlook. And I wouldn't, different people have different things that will nudge them in the right ways. That was something that was so jarring, but it had me refocus my lens so dramatically on what was important in life. And so I think, similar to you, like, we need these discomforts. We need these, it's awful to say, but you need these tragedies, these things to help you kind of recalibrate what's important in your life.
Absolutely. The irony of that story is sitting in a hospital room, looking around at people who love you and care about you, and realizing that you're still in good health. Meanwhile, a handful of rooms down the hallway, there's a family saying goodbye to someone.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just reminds you to take a moment and go, yes, this is bad. It sucks. It hurts. But like really and truly in the grand scheme of things, how bad is it really?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Nick, thank you so much for your time, brother. This
Pleasure,
was incredible.
Man. Yeah, I really appreciate this.
Long overdue, but I'm really excited that we got to finally do this. And I'm excited for this next part of your journey. I'm excited to see what comes for you. And we're definitely going to do a part 2.
Cool.
As the story evolves.
Yeah, I would love that.
Amazing. Where can people find you?
They can find me, I guess, on socials at Nick McNaught.
Mm-hmm.
Website would be stayunbounded.com or unboundeddimensions.com. Other than that, Google.
Amazing. Nick, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Thank you, everybody.